Blog Talk Radio.
We'll never see you again.
I dearly hope so, my prince. There is so much more I meant to tell you. Everything you know is about to change.
American Daily Review.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
When America needed them most, two men rose to the occasion. Doug Gibbs of Constitution Radio and PoliticalPistachio.com. Jasnius of PoliticalPistachio.com, Constitution Radio, and the Hard Starboard Radio Network. This is American Daily Review on blogtalkradio.com.
I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known. Don't know where it goes, but it's home to me and I walk alone. I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams, where the city sleeps and I'm the only one. And I walk up my shadow's the only one that walks beside me. My shallow heart's the only thing that's beating. Sometimes I wish someone out there will find me. Till then I walk alone.
You've got to be kidding me. You're it? You're the black person.
No, Jasmius.
Man, ladies and gentlemen, I am wheezing like Bernie Sanders at one of his super gargantuan Nazi-esque rallies. I'm telling you, this has been quite a morning. The reason it's been quite a morning is because I found out, or I learned, with about 90 minutes to go until airtime, that I was flying solo on American Daily Review. Not everything, not Constitution Radio. Doug Gibbs will be on Constitution Radio. Don't panic. But I'd be flying solo on American Daily Review, and it was completely up to me to produce the show. Yay! So I spent the last 90 minutes throwing together the show, the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, brought to you, by the way, by All-Star Collision, located at 522 Railroad Street in Corona, California. If you have any auto body detailing or repair needs and you are in the Gibbs pocket of Southern California, the Patriots at All-Star Collision are the only place to go. Why go anyplace else? You know, it's like the old Sleep Country USA jingle, which is now, by the way, they're now known as Sleep Train for some reason. You know, but that jingle went, "Why buy a mattress anywhere else?" Ding. Well, Why get your trunk that's been ripped off the rest of your car replaced anywhere else? Or your bumper, or the scratch in your door, or a sunroof that you weren't planning on. Go to All-Star Collision. Their web address, allstarci.com. To speak to a live patriot, call 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll. Thank you very much. Threw it all together, all the All-Star Collision big stories of the week, and in fact, I was a like a minute late getting on the air today, so I apologize for that. I was working as fast as I could. Like I say, Doug will not be here today. By the way, I'm Jasmius. I host the Hard Starboard Radio Network podcast Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, where you will find, by the way, almost 9 years worth of podcasts. That's right. May the 26th, 9 years on the air at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. And by the way, since you're here, whether live or on the podcast, on American Daily Review, the first 2 hours and kickoff of the Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza, help yourself to the 6.5 years worth of podcasts you will find on this particular page. And then, of course, all the podcasts of Constitution Radio are either on our show page at KMET1490am.com, or send an email to me, Jasmius, Jasmius, at Comcast.net, and specify the dates of the podcasts of Constitution Radio, any of the 200 such podcasts during our 3.5 year plus run on KCAA AM 1050, and I'll be happy to send them to you. But I will be flying solo on American Daily Review today. Doug will be hosting Constitution Radio live from the Ontario, California Gun Show, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they still allow gun shows in California. Who knows for how much longer, but it's no joke. Doug talked about it last week, in case you have forgotten temporarily. You know, there was a move by local authorities it was a big labor lawyer who, for some unfathomable reason, was allowed onto the board of the Costa Mesa Fairground, the Orange County Fairgrounds in Costa Mesa, California. The last gun show that Doug live broadcasted from, bringing you Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, and tried to float a motion to get gun shows eliminated by the Ontario Fairgrounds, and of course, I don't think it went anywhere. But yeah, amazingly, gun shows are still allowed in California. Like I say, who knows for how much longer? But today, Doug is at the gun show in Ontario, California, and he says he brought his power cord with him. So there will be no going dark because his laptop battery ran out of juice, like happened a couple of weeks ago. And in which you'll notice, if you go back to the podcast, which is available, as I say, at our show page, Constitution Radio show page, at KMET1490am.com, you will notice I slid right in seamlessly and finished the program, because that's the broadcasting, that's the kind of broadcasting professional, figuratively speaking, since I'm not getting paid for it, but that's the kind of broadcasting professional that I am. Just without missing a beat, just slid right in, knew exactly what to do, and finished off the program. And so, but we're here all by ourselves today, ladies and gentlemen, because Doug is so busy he can't spare the time Beyond American Daily Review. But who knows? If you've heard me on Hard Starboard Radio lately, you know that I'm sitting here wondering what the hell's going on, and basically I have no I was looking at a video, one of my video collection of Seattle Seahawks videos from the past few glory years, and I was reminded of quarterback Russell Wilson's motto for the 2013 Super Bowl winning season, the championship season. Why not us? And I thought about that. I thought, yeah, why not us? And then I remembered. That was in the context of the Seahawks having an opportunity. It was all in front of them. They had an opportunity. I don't have any opportunities. None. I don't have any professional opportunities, not in my old profession. I thought I was going to have a radio opportunity with Patriot Insight Radio, but then they screwed me. Day before, saying, well, you can't host by Skype the same way I've been co-hosting and guest hosting Constitution Radio for the past 4.5 freaking years, but that doesn't matter. No, you can't host it that way. You got to have a whole radio studio, and you got to have a radio antenna, and you got to have you got to spend like several $1,000s before you get. And it's like, oh, well, I wish you'd have told me this a month ago when you first contacted me. And speaking, of course, of Matthew Ricks, MatthewRix, Matthew Ricks. That's what I'm talking about. Tell me that in the beginning, and I'd have said, well, I don't have any of that, and I can't afford to get it. So unless we can work something else out, like letting me Skype in to host my program on PatriotInsightRadio.com, then No, he told me, oh yeah, you can do it that way. Then the day before my debut edition of Hard Starboard Radio on PatriotInsightRadio.com, he finally gets back to me and says, well, no, you can't do it that way. You got to have the whole radio studio. And it's like, oh, well, thanks a frickin' lot. Thanks a fracking lot, Matt. So I don't have any opportunities other than what happens down in SoCal. That's pretty much it, folks. So the busier that Mr. Gibbs gets, the better it might get for me. Might. I don't know. The opportunities that Doug eventually gets, radio-wise, or through the Center for the Study of the United States Constitution, might not include me. Because the opportunities that he gets are going to be for him, and he may not be given the latitude to bring me along. There is that possibility, folks. And if that turned out to be the case, well, it's not like I could really. It would be bitterly disappointing, but if Doug was in a position where they only wanted him and they didn't want anybody else, and if you were in his position, would you turn down the opportunity because you couldn't bring your friend along? I mean, he's a lot worse off financially than I am, so I wouldn't put that on him. But it would be bitterly disappointing. I'm to the point now where I'm 2.5 years into this exile, folks. So I mean, it's like I 2.5 years into it. So I've reached the point where I'm almost expecting to get screwed or otherwise disenfranchised, cut loose, amputated like a gangrenous limb at every opportunity. Yeah, every opportunity to do it to me. Now, I don't get any opportunities. That is the life I am living, ladies and gentlemen, and it raises the question. I have brought this up in prayer too. It's why am I still here? What purpose do I serve? Yeah, I know. You take care of your dad. Oh, that's nice. Well, okay, that's it. That's the only reason I'm still around. oh, well, your wife needs you and your children need you. Yeah, what do they need me for? I can't provide for them anymore. So what do they need me for? Hell, they're providing for each other, for themselves. My son has a job. My daughter has started her career already. And of course, Mrs. Hard Starboard is, I mean, her expenses, if I were out of the picture, her expenses would go down considerably. My appetite wouldn't be draining irreplaceable resources. That's a pretty big chunk to begin with. So, I'm sitting up here just waiting for something to happen, but you never know. Maybe it could. Maybe it could be, maybe the ship could finally come in, and maybe I would have a billet, even if it wasn't third class. I wouldn't care, just so I can pay the bills. That's all I really care about. I don't have to get rich. I don't care about getting famous, other than in the radio sense. But I'm perfectly happy being Pat Gray to Doug's Glenn Beck. I've said that before many times. I'll say it again here. So the busier that Doug gets, the better it potentially, possibly, might, conceivably, hypothetically, theoretically get for me. And that's all I've had to hang my hat on for the past 2.5 years, and it's not getting any better in that regard. So at any rate, we got to the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week to go through. One other programming note. On Constitution Radio later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, I will be in the center seat. Now, that's not to say Doug is going to be on the show, but he's going to be, shall we say, in his ready room. And I will be sitting in the center seat. I will be driving the show today. I will not. Doug will be there, but he will be kind of taking a back seat. It's kind of like the beta shift on the Starship Enterprise, where Riker has the watch and he's sitting in the center seat while Picard is somewhere else. He's still on the ship, but Riker is minding the store, you might say. So it might sound a little bit different, have a little bit different of a dynamic later on today on Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs and Jasmius and Alex Ferguson. And there's a story in the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week that I know that Alex is going to appreciate, and when we get to it in the 1 o'clock hour on KMET1490am.com, you will know precisely which one that is. But we start out, let's I almost forgot the bumper music, for crying out loud. Story in the docket today, Obama-hu Akbar. Yes, Barack Obama is still doing his part to advance the global jihad, ladies and gentlemen, at America's expense. A couple of items, a couple of stories, or kind of, what's the term I'm looking for? Couple of items under this particular story hitting. And let's see. Is that right? Yeah, it does help to actually have the cursor showing here. Chat room is belatedly starting to fill up. And this emerged a week ago. The Department, or Commissariat, if you will, of Homeland Insecurity of the Obama regime has over the past few years, purged records of Islamic jihadist ties. Ladies and gentlemen. Now, yeah, I suppose this story could be considered explosive to anybody who's been suffering from acute cranial rectosis for the past 8 years. This is from thehill.com. A veteran official with the Commissariat of Homeland Insecurity, this is a whistleblower, folks, says that he and other staff were ordered to destroy records on a federal database. Isn't that criminal? Seems odd. It's like destroying evidence or something. They were ordered to destroy records on a federal database that showed links between possible jihadists and Islamic terrorist groups. After leaving my 15-year career at DHS, I can no longer be silent about the dangerous state of America's counter-terror strategy. Our leaders' willingness to compromise the security of citizens for the ideological rigidity of political correctness, and consequently our vulnerability to devastating mass casualty attacks, the former employee, Patrick Haney, wrote in an explosive column that was published last Friday, a week ago yesterday, on thehill.com. Haney alleges that the Obama regime has been engaged in a bureaucratic effort to destroy the raw material and intelligence the Commissariat of Homeland Insecurity has been collecting for years, leaving the United States wide open to mass casualty attacks. And no, this is not a recently implemented policy. Just 1 month before the Christmas 2009 panty bomber attack, if you will recall, Mr. I forget his name. I just remember it ends with a Talib. You could look it up. You know who I'm talking about. Haney, just a month before the Christmas 2009 panty bomber attack, Haney said, his DHS supervisors ordered him to either delete or modify the records for several hundred people tied to Islamic terror organizations, including Hamas, from the Treasury Enforcement Communication System, the federal database. Those records give DHS the ability to connect dots, explained Haney, and every day the agency's Custom and Border and Protection officials use the database while watching people who are associated with known terrorist affiliations to watch for patterns that could indicate a pending attack. Enforcing a political scrubbing of records of Muslims greatly affected our ability to do that, Haney said. Even worse, going forward, my colleagues and I were prohibited from entering pertinent information into the database. And even weeks after the attempted Christmas Day 2009 attack, he was still being ordered, Haney was, to delete and scrub terrorist records, making it more difficult to connect dots in the future. End of quote. Now, the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing, Alton Nolan's 2014 beheading spree in Oklahoma, Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz's shooting up of 2 gun-free military installations in Chattanooga, Tennessee last year, the San Bernardino jihadist shootings, all successful attacks that might have been prevented if the Obama regime had permitted it. You know, it's a miracle that Amin al-Khalifi's plot to blow up the U.S. Capitol in 2012 didn't reach grisly fruition as well. But there are plenty more mass casualty attacks where those came from. And President Obama plainly and simply has no desire or intention of stopping any of them. Again, we must ask, folks, what if it isn't just political correctness, but simply that the man 62 million Patakpu, twice elected, is sided with our enemies in aiding the global jihad's genocidal war against us? You know, to reduce America to the level of the rest of the world. Whether or not he's actually a Muslim himself or simply heavily sympathetic towards them through a Marxist-Alinskyist prism, it would certainly fit perfectly with Occam's razor, after all. You know, the simplest explanation to a situation is usually the correct one. I mean, how much longer can the next 9/11 or worse be held off when there's nothing and no one permitted to do the holding? Okay, and one other thing under Obamahu Akbar. Let's see, as soon as the page will load. Okay, here it goes. Now, this is an example of another wonderful benefit and advantage of the interminable presidential apprentice world tour sucking up all the national oxygen. My fellow Obamericastanis, is providing all kinds of additional distractionary cover for Barack Hussein Obama to do all kinds of outrageous things right out in the open that he might otherwise have made a token effort to conceal from the back nine. This quote comes to us from Newsmax. Senate Republicans are blasting a disturbing Obama administration plan for what they're calling an interview surge of thousands of Syrian refugees to expedite their entry into the United States. The GOP lawmakers reveal in a letter sent yesterday to Commissariat of Homeland Insecurity Commissar Jay Johnson and Commissar of State John Kerry, that the Senate Judiciary Committee has learned the administration is sending between 200 and 300 officials to Jordan for at least 45 days, so over 6 weeks, to interview thousands of candidates for the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program. Why bother going to the jihadists instead of letting them come to us through normal channels? Well, here's your punchline. The senators charge that this plan, referred to as the Marka surge, Marka is an acronym, M-A-R-K-A, and what it stands for, well, I'm pretty sure the first letter stands for Muslim. The rest of it's probably in Arabic. The senators charge the plan, referred to as the Marka surge, is being used to expedite the pace of refugee vetting that usually takes 2 years to complete. 2 years worth of civ-like vetting, quote unquote, in 45 days. Over 16 times the normal pace. What could possibly justify the regime being in such a confounded pants-wetting rush to put its Islamicization process on quantum slipstream overdrive, other than to try and proportionately catch up with Angela Merkel's roving Muslim rape gang festivals, an all-around culturo-societal, yes, that is a word because I just said it, disintegration, and buying into Donald Trump's I'll ban all Muslims BS. Senators Grassley, Cruz, Hatch, Lee, Perdue, Sessions, Tillis, and Vitter do the honors of answering that rhetorical question as well. Quote, the administration's refusal to suspend or even slow the pace of such refugee processing is particularly disturbing when reports abound of Islamic State terrorists intentionally inserting themselves into the Syrian refugee stream. Close quote. Ah, yes. Let dozens of 9/11s and thousands of San Bernardinos bloom. Bring the Arab Spring to America. Reduce large parts of our country down to the level of Syria. Deliberately, and with treasonous malice aforethought. Well, I can't wait to see what else the one is doing while all eyes focus Trumpward, or if we'll even live long enough to find out. And here's a parting thought on this story. What are the aforementioned senators expecting to hear back from Double J and Lurch? Profuse sobbing contrition? How about a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlate saying enough is enough, or in the original Klingon, marry up! Time for an impeachment inquiry. Now, of course, it would never succeed in removing Barack Obama from office, but it would line up in one place all his countless high crimes and misdemeanors from the past 7 years in order to ask and pose to American voters if this is the suicidal path down which we want to continue to careen. And as an added bonus, it might suck some media oxygen away from Trump and even add a veneer of populism to the party he's trying to hostilely take over. What say you? Next story. The North Korean front. And a couple of things here, and nothing really new, but it continues the trend, shall we say. Now, we talked last week about how North Korea was preparing to launch, or rather test, another one of their ICBMs under the cover of launching an Earth-observing satellite. Yeah, they put an unspecified something into polar orbit around our planet. I'm willing to take bets on it, but my money would be on a nuclear weapons platform. Anyway, this is a quote from Reuters. North Korea last Sunday declared that it had successfully put an Earth observation satellite into orbit under the. Maybe I have to dredge up my Ted Baxter impression. North Korea on Sunday declared that it had successfully put an Earth observation satellite into orbit. Under the direct orders of leader Kim Jong-un, and said it planned to launch many more. Both the South Korean Defense Ministry and the Obamagon said that the rocket launched at 9 a.m. North Korean time from a launch pad near the Red Chinese border. By the way, do you think it's any accident that they put it so close to Chinese territory? Protection, folks. You take out that, you might have some collateral damage across the Yalu. The rocket appeared to have successfully reached space. The United States, Japan, and South Korea immediately condemned the launch, a move widely seen as another step toward North Korea mastering the technology for making a missile capable of striking the mainland United States. And if you don't think they already have that capability, then you haven't been paying attention. The UN Security Council called it a... What do you... Here's this pop quiz. What do you think the UN Security Council did? Did they immediately declare war on North Korea? Or did they call an emergency meeting for later Sunday to discuss how to respond to the country's latest provocation? Yeah, I know. That's too easy. Or as Captain Picard put it, oh, that was too easy. They're already responding like they always do, impotently and ineffectively. Hell, calling a meeting is the telltale signal that nobody is going to do anything about this except to continue to hand wring and jibber jabber until either my hometown, Seattle, or Doug Gibbs's hometown, Los Angeles, or the major cities in between, Portland and San Francisco. And by the way, my daughter is in Portland at the moment. Before the year is out. Now, given both the... Oh, I bet you didn't know. I just got an email. Given both the gangster-esque nature of the Kim regime and the fact that they are most likely to use nukes as a means of forcing us to prop them up economically, I would surmise that these are the sort of attacks we face from the no-cos versus an electromagnetic pulse attack. I think the Iranians will probably take care of that one. The logic being that if the no-cos did it, they'd be killing their own golden goose, which wouldn't make my Doug's or my daughter's near-term futures any easier. But what can we do about this? Well, short of initiating nuclear war with the Chi-Coms ourselves, because if you think if we nuke North Korea, the Chi-Coms might have something to say about it, there's not a whole lot we can do. Ted Cruz laid it out at the GOP debate last Saturday in New Hampshire. Quote, I don't have the link here handy, but anyway, with respect to North Korea and what we should do now, one of the first things we should do is expand our missile defense capacity. And by the way, we sent another Patriot missile battery to South Korea yesterday. So that's something, I guess. We ought to put missile defense interceptors in South Korea. Well, we just did, at least short-range missile interceptors. South Korea wants them. One of the real risks of this launch is that North Korea wants to launch a satellite, in quotes, and one of the greatest risks of the satellite is they would place a nuclear device in it. In other words, it wouldn't be a satellite, it would be a nuclear weapons platform. As it would orbit around Earth, and as it got over the United States, they would detonate their nuclear weapon and set off what's called an electromagnetic pulse, which would take down the entire electrical grid, potentially killing millions. We need to harden the grid to defend ourselves, and we need missile defense to protect ourselves against North Korea. Close quote. Well, whether a President Cruz or President Rubio ever gets the chance to do so, since Barack Obama never will, is anybody's guess, other than that Patriot missile battery that just sent to South Korea yesterday. Now, that will determine for just exactly what Doug, I, and our progeny get a front row seat. And where I'm usually sitting, whiling away the days, and I'm like Marak, Captain Clagg's father. You know, he was captured by Romulans and he escaped and he just went home and waited to die. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm just sitting here and waiting to die or run out of money, whichever comes first. But my recliner, the window next to my recliner looks out to the north, and where I live is south of Seattle. So if Seattle goes up in a flash and a bang from a North Korean nuke, I'm going to have a pretty much of a front row seat if hopefully 40 miles is far enough removed that I won't get caught in the conflagration, depending on how big they make their nukes. I mean, they tested or claimed that they did a thermonuclear warhead, a hydrogen bomb, last week, or week before last, 2 weeks ago. So, who knows? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of the pot-bellied pig in Pyongyang? Yeah, the pot-bellied pig in Pyongyang. How about that for alliteration? On the fly, the other story under this heading, North Korea has restarted one of their plutonium reactors. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, it looks like the NOCOs are preparing to construct more Earth-observing satellites. North Korea has started, by the way, the quote is from Newsmax. North Korea has restarted a plutonium reactor that could fuel a nuclear bomb and is seeking missile technology that could threaten the United States, Washington's top spy said Tuesday. In an annual threat assessment, Director of National Intelligence James Copper Clapper-Caper, anybody my age or older will get that reference, and senior military and intelligence officials singled out the authoritarian pariah state as a major and unpredictable menace. By the way, would the United States, Obamamerikistan, not be fairly described now as an authoritarian patsy state? Just a question that came to mind. North Korea's nuclear weapons program and evolving missile programs are a continuing threat, Copper Clapper Caper said. That we have neither the will nor the ability to stop, but I guess we know the identity of our eventual killers, or would if there wasn't such a long line for the honor. Pyongyang continues to produce fissile material and develop a submarine-launched ballistic missile, Copper Clapper Caper told the lawmakers. You know, funny, I thought the regime had poo-pooed that last year. Oh, they don't have the ability to make a submarine-launched ballistic missile. They don't have the technology to do that. They eat tree bark. What do they know about nuclear weapons? Well, they know quite a bit about nuclear weapons, quite obviously. Courtesy of Bill Clinton. See, in the same way that Iranian nuclear weapons are Barack Obama's legacy, North Korean nuclear weapons are Bill Clinton's legacy, because Bill Clinton had the same chance to stop the NOCOs from getting nukes that every president since has had, but Barack Obama was the most recent one, and of course, Obama chose to give his blessing to the Iranian nuclear weapons program instead. So, what you gonna do, huh? But now the regime is admitting it. They're admitting that North Korea has submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Or is Copper Clapper Caper going off the reservation, as it were? Because if so, then he might not enjoy his next performance review in the Oval Office. It is also committed, North Korea, to developing a long-range nuclear armed missile that is capable of posing a direct threat to the United States, although this system has not been flight tested. Good Lord, have you not been paying attention? Yeah, it hasn't been tested aside from this past weekend. Son of a... Perhaps most worrying, however, is North Korea's resumption of plutonium production, a sign it remains bent on producing more powerful bombs despite international economic sanctions. Well, that says something about the effectiveness of international economic sanctions, doesn't it? And now they've got the means to get them removed permanently with a flash and a bang. We further assess that North Korea has been operating the reactor long enough so that it could begin to recover plutonium from the reactor's spent fuel within a matter of weeks to months, Copper Clapper Caper said. When fully operational, the reactor is capable of producing around 6 kilos, or 13 pounds, of plutonium a year, enough for one nuclear bomb, experts say, close quote. Folks, if they've already tested 4 nuclear warheads, we can safely assume that they have many more where that came from. You know, if this is looking a lot like our future dealings with the Islamic Empire of Iran, go to the head of the class while it still exists. Alrighty then, next story, Obama's victory laps. And under this story we got Obama celebrates an America dividing job well done. The Pentagon is to be effectively merged into the Environmental Pollution Agency because the Pentagon, the U.S. military is being ordered to use clean energy, which means no energy, because I don't think, last I checked, I mean, maybe they made vast, dramatic strides in engineering over the past few years, but I'm pretty sure that an aircraft carrier cannot be propelled by sunbeams and windmills. Besides which, given where you would have to put all the windmills, wouldn't it have to be all on the flight deck? How could they launch any planes? Oh, there is a method to their madness. And, of course, the Supreme Court, unexpectedly but futilely, tried to block Barack Obama's Clean Power Plan, which is basically wiping out what's left of the coal and petroleum industry. It'll be now. Of course, what that means is that the Supreme Court issued a stay, so that the lawsuit of I forget how many states filed this federal lawsuit trying to block the Clean Power Plan initiative by the EPA, while that suit moves its way through the courts. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals rejected that stay and gave the green light to the regime to move forward with the CPP anyway, which is really kind of retarded. I mean, why? I mean, if a lawsuit has been filed, doesn't the suit have to have a chance to be heard before the subject, before that which has been filed to stop actually goes into effect? What if the states were to win their lawsuit? What then? I mean, the Clean Power Plan would already be in place. I mean, of course it should be stayed. Good Lord. By the way, remember, year, 2, 3 years ago, in the last few years, when Barack Obama made in fact, I remember what it was. It was back 2 years ago. Remember when Harry Reid nuked the confirmation filibuster so that Barack Obama could pack the federal court with his Marxist, Alinskyist operatives, and that the one court that was the most specific target of this was the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which hears all cases involving the challenging in court of new federal regulations. Yeah, now you know why he did it. But now the Supreme Court blocked it. Now and of course we talked about it before. The state should just nullify it. The states should just say, you know what? Because the states, remember, if Doug were here, he'd already be saying it. The states are supposed to be the arbiters of constitutionality because the states are the ones who created the federal government through the United States Constitution in the first place. The states have original authority, including over environmental matters. There's nothing in the United States Constitution that even the word environment is not in the Constitution. It's not an enumerated power of the federal government. It belongs to the states. And so the states, as from original authority, their original authority, which they didn't delegate that part of it. So the states are the arbiters, or should be the arbiters of constitutionality. And so they just should simply say, you don't have the authority to do that. The Clean Power Plan has no legal authority. It is null and void, and we're not going to implement it. Enforce that, bitches. But the judicial review mentality is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Everywhere except this program and Hard Starboard Radio and Constitution Radio. And so, but the Supreme Court did issue the stay. Now, we don't know what the vote was. I'm guessing it was 5-4. And frankly, until I see the Supreme Court publicly and unanimously strike down the Clean Power Plan, you can count on it rolling forward anyway. So, but enough about that. Here's the item I wanted to focus on. Obama celebrates an America dividing job well done. Yeah, here we go. Once it loads. Now, this was highly entertaining to me in the way that the only way I'm ever entertained anymore, in a sardonic sense, gallows humor. Now, at this point, you really do wonder who Barack Obama and his media worshipers believe they're actually fooling with this incense-burning nonsense. I mean, did they somehow deport us all to a parallel bizarro dimension where the past 7 years didn't happen? Or did they displace themselves in the attempt to a parallel bizarro dimension where the past 7 years did happen, but we the people were sound asleep? Quote us from Newsmax. Presidents in the final year of their terms, they think he's in his final year, love to highlight their legacies. When Barack Obama journeys to the Illinois state capitol this week, which he already did. This is from early in the week. He'll instead point up one of his presidency's greatest failures. Barack Obama admitting failure? What's that line from that third season Star Trek, the original series episode, The Paradise Syndrome? Yeah, behold a God that bleeds. Yeah, indeed. Praise the Lord for it, but this is a different small g God, God-Bama. Well, what failure is he talking about? Obamacare? No, he meant to lay waste to the private health insurance market. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act? The stimulus, in other words. No, he meant to piss away $1 trillion to his tribe. putting the country in the worst national security danger in at least a third of a century? No, that was his stated foreign policy doctrine. Doubling the national debt in 7 years? No, that was the definition of Obamonomics. Using the Constitution as an adult diaper? Oh, man, come on. A chimpanzee could abide by the founders' limitations more and better by accident. So about what on earth was he talking? Breaking 100 on the back nine? Here's the answer, folks. One of Barack Obama's greatest accomplishments by his lights, which his stupendous strutting narcissism is turning in classic gold ducat fashion into a failure. National political divisions and partisan rancor, or rancor, however you want to pronounce it, have grown worse, not better, under Obama, a development he has acknowledged as one of the biggest regrets of his administration. No, really, he appears to be serious about this. Probably in the same way that Ivan Drago regretted having failed to break Rocky Balboa. You know, I must break you. By the way, did you know that Dolph Lundgren has an IQ of 160 and a degree in chemical engineering? But that was news to me. No, Springfield, Illinois. Yeah, Springfield, Illinois has become a funhouse mirror of Washington's dysfunction. A Republican. This is. God. See why I wanted to focus in on this one. A Republican governor locked in a standoff with a Democrat legislature, producing a financial. That didn't produce a financial. That didn't produce. Gridlock didn't produce Illinois' financial crisis. The Democrats did. Jeez, criminy. Producing a financial crisis that has left the state without a budget for 222 days and forced cuts in services to the disabled, homeless, and the elderly. You know the Democrats did that deliberately as blackmail, of course. And, you know, kudos to Bruce Rauner, the Republican governor of Illinois. He hasn't buckled under the pressure. You know, as I'm sure any Tea Partier would be happy to amen, since, of course, when has the Republican Congress sustained any budgetary dispute with the one for even a tenth as long, 222 days? He's a striding colossus on that score compared to Illinois Democrats. About what the heck does he have to complain? Obama on Wednesday addressed the stalemated Illinois legislature 9 years to the day after he announced his presidential campaign a few blocks away. At the time, he held up the state's... Who says Barack Obama isn't a comedian? He held up the state's government as proof that Washington politicians could overcome partisan differences to solve problems. As the Obama era nears its end, I'm sorry, it's just too much. The two capitals are more alike, though not as candidate Obama would have hoped. Yeah, the Republicans took back Congress. That's what that means. You know, 9 years ago, Illinois had a Democrat governor, the currently imprisoned Rod Blagojevich, and a Democrat legislature, which made it awfully easy for the Democrats to overcome partisan differences to solve problems by the simple implement of sheer numbers and raw power. Illinois Republicans couldn't dysfunctionally stop anything. The only reason they can now is because Illinois voters turned in desperation to Republican Bruce Rauner after all of Illinois Democrats' solutions drove Illinois off the fiscal precipice into the dark abyss of bankruptcy below. Dysfunction, in other words, is indicative that our system of government is not yet completely moribund, but has some degree of functioning civic immune system left. I know he's been referring to Obama. I know he's been frustrated by the gridlock in Washington, and he's talked about the importance of bipartisan compromise. We need that here. Yeah, the Democrats need to surrender. Follow the governor's lead. I mean, gridlock in Washington? Gridlock in Washington, Tea Partiers, you listening to that? I'll give you all a chance to regain your composure after the paroxysms of hysterical laughter I know just erupted from your innards. Heck, I'll even give it on-air manifestation. There, feel better? Regain your composure? I know it was tough, but good to go. Okay, good. Because now you can double yourselves over yet again with the spectacle of the same President of the United States who has had the worst relations with Congress of any president in decades, who has never bothered with even the pretense of trying to get along with Capitol Hill, who looked at a Democrat Congress as subordinate water carriers and servants, and the Republican Congress that replaced it solely because of him as an unruly obstacle to be disregarded and circumvented, law and Constitution be damned, talking about the importance of bipartisan compromise, in which President in which President I-1 has never once indulged even on a lark. Barack Obama's greatest regret is that Republicans won't follow his orders. Ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, my Tea Party friends. I know I just made you piss yourselves with that one. Incidentally, he's got another order up. This is another Newsmax quote. Barack Obama will ask Congress for more than $1.8 billion in, here we go, emergency funding to tackle the fast-spreading Zika virus, a.k.a. Captain Buzz. That's a tease for the next story. Both at home and abroad, the White House said Monday. The administration will submit the request shortly, the White House said in a statement that did not specify a time frame. End of quote. You know what Rahm Emanuel said once upon a time? Never let a crisis go to waste. Even if this doesn't quite reach that threshold, but it is an opportunity to pander to Latinos some more, racistly bash Republicans if they don't obey his royal command, and then wax lamentably, yes, that is a word because I just said it, about dysfunction some more. Ganar, ganar, ganar. And no, that is actually in a language, but I don't remember which language it was in, so you'll have to bear with me on that. Yes, the next story, Captain Buzz, the Zika virus. We talked about it last week on the Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza. And it's a virus that originated in Africa. It's mosquito-borne, although it can be spread through bodily fluids. So that includes sexual contact. It just turned up, and it become an epidemic in Brazil, and of course the WHO, World Health Organization, has predicted that it will spread to every country in the Americas, North America, South America, except Canada and Chile. I'm still not sure why that is, but I haven't seen anything that indicates it, the reason for it. And then, like we talked about last week, the first case arrived in Texas a week ago. So, and of course, it causes encephaly in newborns in utero. In other words, it shrinks babies' brains. Encephaly is what it's called, and it can have complications that can be life-threatening. And so, and they're about 18 months, year and a half away from a cure and or vaccine. So, it's definitely a risk. It doesn't rise to the level of Captain Trips or Captain Chirps or Captain Oinks or MERS or MRSA or SARS, any of these other directly lethal viruses, but it can potentially be lethal. At any rate, there's a couple of stories on this. One is, now stop and think about a minute. This outbreak broke out in Brazil, right, of the Zika virus, Captain Buzz. Guess what's also going on in Brazil later this year? That's right. I forget which number Olympiad this is, but the Rio de Janeiro Summer Olympics. This could be seriously impacted. Why, you may be asking? Well, how about this? Try this on for size. The Zika outbreak might be becoming the Grand Bull Moose Gold Medal winner of bad timing for Brazil, because if the U.S. Olympic team declines to expose themselves and doesn't bring hordes of American tourists and their dwindling dollars with them, a lot of other countries may follow suit. Yeah, here we go. This is also a Newsmax quote. The United States Olympic Committee told U.S. sports federations that athletes and staff concerned for their health over the Zika virus should consider not going to the Rio 2016 Olympic Games in August. The message was delivered in a conference call involving United States Olympic Committee officials and leaders of U.S. sports federations in late January, according to two people who participated in the call. Federations were told that no one should go to Brazil if they don't feel comfortable going. Bottom line, said Donald Anthony, president and board chairman of USA Fencing. The U.S. Olympic Committee's briefing to sports federations is the latest sign that Olympics officials are taking the Zika threat to the Games in Rio de Janeiro seriously and acknowledging that at least some athletes and support staff could face a tough decision over whether to attend. The United States won the most medals at the last Olympics in London in 2012, so any disruption to its presence would be important for the Rio Games. Yeah, I would say that's right. Now, I'm not, end of quote, by the way. Now, I'm not going to pretend put myself in the shoes of an Olympic athlete. All I have to do is look in the mirror and see even if I wasn't, and even if I wasn't 51 years old too, yeah. Not NBA or Major League Baseball players for whom playing in the games is a novelty or a vacation, but the fencers, the rowers, the synchronized swimmers, the decathletes, and other obscure sports participants for whom the Olympics are their Super Bowl, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attain the dream of both participating on the world stage against the best and perhaps, and perchance, standing atop that metal platform watching Old Glory go up and the Star-Spangled Banner resound. I mean, do you take the risk of your future children being crippled or spreading it or even potentially endangering your own life for your lifelong dream? Would doing so anyway be courageous or foolhardy, or selfish, for that matter? I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in that position. At the choice that each Olympic athlete apparently is being left up to the athletes. The USOC is punting on this. Apparently, the individual sports federations are punting on it as well. They're leaving it up to the athletes. Do you want to take a chance on contracting this virus or not? I mean, of course, if they were paying full attention to the WHO, the World Health Organization, and taking what the WHO is saying seriously, they would just be pulling out of the games right now. So I'm not quite sure that. I think that what this tells me is that the United States Olympic Committee and the individual sports federations just don't want to take. They are absolving themselves. They're saying, "Hey, we're not making you go. If you want to go, you're going on your own recognizance, so that they can cover their own asses." That's what it sounds like to me. But but that's now an issue and a possibility for Olympic athletes contracting the Zika virus, and thus a great big towering incentive for Brazil, the host country, which is in desperate need of the economic bonanza and distraction that the Rio Games would provide, to get Captain Buzz under control as soon as possible. And nothing stimulates leadership more than a big payday, after all, especially if you can't legislate it. Oh, and then there's also what do we got here? Oh, that might take up some time, and that might take up some time. Well, I don't know. We might have a chance to take a look at this. There is an apostate Catholic group. Now, see if you can spot the flaw in their logic here. There is an apostate Catholic group that is urging Pope Francis, who is, as we speak, on the U.S.-Mexican frontier. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But this apostate Catholic group is urging Pope Francis to bless abortions to fight the Zika virus. Yeah, this is the point at which you're supposed to say, what? That's what they're saying. That's their argument. Now, I have no objection to their use protection recommendation. Contraception. I got no problem with that. Of course, I'm not a Catholic either. But although it should be accompanied, I would think, because I am a Christian, by an equally strenuous sexual abstinence admonition outside of the bounds of marriage. But where is the logic? And yeah, use protection even within marriage. If you live in an area, you and your wife live in an area that is where the Zika virus is raging, you would need to use protection even within the bounds of marriage. So I just wanted to clarify that. But where is the logic in pushing abortion as a solution to the Zika epidemic when it's the baby that catches the virus from the mother? How ghoulish can you get? Let's see. This is from Newsmax. A Roman Catholic group appealed to Pope Francis on Wednesday to allow church members to follow their conscience. Really, that's they glommed that phrase, conscience, and use contraception or to let women have abortions to protect themselves against the Zika virus. What part of it's the baby that catches the virus from the mother don't you understand? The baby can't catch it from anybody else when it's in utero. Hold on a second.
That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. Vector Sigma. I want none of your shit ever works.
Oh, boy. Now, the appeal came as the World Health Organization, or WHO, advised women in areas with the virus to protect themselves. Crossing their legs would be a good start, especially during pregnancy, by covering up against mosquitoes and practicing safe sex with their partners. No, not partners, spouses. Spouses. Catholics for choice. Why don't they just say Catholics for sin? Asked Francis, Latin America's first pope, to really stand in solidarity with the poor. Have you listened to Francis over the past couple of years? I don't think he needs any such urging. But how is it standing in solidarity with the poor by killing them? How about standing in solidarity with the unborn? Isn't that part of the Pope's job description? Well, it's not Francis's, obviously, but that's a brand of solidarity that doesn't exist outside of Chronicles of Riddick epic. Women's decisions around pregnancy, including the decision to end a pregnancy, which has nothing to do with it, need to be respected, not condemned, it said. End of quote. Oh, my goodness. To answer the rhetorical question I posed above earlier, there is no logic to pushing abortion as a solution to the Zika epidemic. Abortion doesn't have the slightest thing to do with it. It's finishing the job that the Zika virus starts. It's a tag team effort to maximize the morbidity of the epidemic. It is, in other words, my friends, the trade-markedly vile, instinctive compulsion of baby mass murderers to exploit any situation, any crisis to advance their agenda of in utero genocide and human self-extinction, even if the situation can have no effect on their objective, their ostensible objective, of more mountains of fetal corpses. It's also wholly unnecessary, as I'm sure Francis already has something very similar in mind and will spew it forth. In fact, he may very well be spewing it forth as we speak. Oh, my goodness gracious. Here's something to be prepared for. The next omnibus, ladies and gentlemen, because what happened this week? Barack Obama, well, the news media reported it as Barack Obama sent his fiscal 2017 budget to Congress for consideration. What the headline should have said was, Obama tells Congress how much he's going to spend in fiscal year 2017 and on what. Oh, okay. Just as a follow-up to the previous story, Lady Michelle is kind enough to share in the chat room. It might be an infection that was patented in the 50s and has now been let loose for population control purposes. Well, That would fit in with the abortion angle, wouldn't it? I mean, remember what Margaret Sanger said, the founder of Planned Parenthood, way back in the 20s, 30s, whatever it was, early 20th century. Remember what she said about how one of the primary purposes that she had for abortion was to control the black population, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying. That bridged the two stories. I think. Gracias, or Danka, Lady Michelle. Barack Obama, yes, Barack Obama did Congress the gracious courtesy of telling them how much he's going to spend in this fiscal year. And as I say, on what? Now, if anybody thinks this budget is dead on arrival, they're attributing way too much importance and significance to the destination as opposed to the sender. Let's see here. Yep, we stay at Newsmax for the quote. Barack Obama unveiled his last budget on Tuesday. A record $4.1 trillion plan that is dead on arrival in Congress, but could shape the 2016 White House race. And, will be imposed by executive decree. Congress is just there to impotently boo and jeer it. Legislatively, the future looks bleak for Obama's 2017 fiscal plan, which covers spending on everything from cybersecurity to the environment. Non-binding resolutions of opposition, perhaps. That'll be about it. It includes big-ticket spending on America's creaking infrastructure, which, of course, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was supposed to have fixed already. Oh, but yeah, I seem to recall Obama laughing about how, I guess all those shovel-ready projects weren't so shovel-ready after all, because, of course, his green streamist constituents wouldn't hear of building anything. The environmentalists want America's infrastructure to creak and collapse. You think they could, like the Hoover Dam, do you think that they could build the Hoover Dam today? Yeah, sure they could. To the tune of infrastructure spending to the tune of $320 billion over the next decade, a third of $1 trillion. Wow, you're going to wear out Janet Yellen's printing presses, dude. You really are. And ramps up research into anti-energy technologies and cancer. Because, of course, they were just starved of funds before. The budget that we are releasing today reflects my priorities and the priorities that I believe will help degrade and destroy security and prosperity in America for many years to come. Well, I inserted a little bit of truth into that particular quote. It is chock full of measures designed to wean the United States off fossil fuel, in other words, off of energy, including a $10 a barrel tax on crude oil, and take us back to the early 19th century, even without an enemy electromagnetic pulse attack. See, what Barack Obama is really trying to do is he's trying to save the Iranians some of the $150 billion he just gave them. You see how thoughtful he is to the people he really cares about? You can go down the laundry list if you want. It goes without saying that nothing mentioned outside the ostensible military spending items even pretends to be constitutional. When House Speaker Paul Ryan described it as not even a budget so much as a communist manual for growing the federal government at the expense of hardworking Americans, he was being bending over backwardly generous. And to be fair, I'm sure it's DOA on Capitol Hill. That doesn't mean it isn't going to be forced on the country by the Obama White House anyway, which it will, because Barack Obama's pen never runs out of ink. It's a pity our economy can't say the same thing about dollars. Now here's the companion story. That's why I entitled this story "The Next Omnibus," ladies and gentlemen. That doesn't come from the first story. That doesn't come from the first story. No, my friends, this comes from the companion story, and I'm bridging like crazy to try to cover the fact that this tab is refusing to load. So I will compensate while it decides to do that. Now, at first I thought that this item was about Barack Obama's ego. Oh, how dare those right-wing extremist, racist, Islamophobic, homophobic, transphobic, and sexist enemies of the state knaves object to me forcing my budget on them by executive decree. Up with their heads! Then I got a closer look. And what did I see but congressional Republicans disintegrating before his infernal majesty all over again and saving himself the trouble. Where's the link here? Yeah, this is from Newsmax as well. The White House is going on an offensive. Yeah, they're offensive, all right. Just see here. On an offensive push, for its hefty $4.1 trillion election year budget by attacking congressional Republicans for getting entangled in their own budget battles. The Hill report. So this is from the Hill, After the administration unveiled its budget orders Tuesday, Office of Management and Budget Director Sean Donovan, no, not Mark Singer's character from the VTV movie, but different Sean Donovan. This guy probably doesn't have quite as big a pecs, but he fired off a news release calling out strife within the House GOP conference and warning that top GOP lawmakers who want deeper cuts would blow up last fall's $1.1 trillion spending deal. All together now, folks. Oh. Or, damn it! Yeah, I'm sure that's what you're thinking. The question here isn't a fight between the administration and Republicans. It's a fight within the Republican Party, Donovan said Tuesday, the Hill reports. We've done our part with this budget. It's going to be up to them to see whether they could live up to their promises to get back to regular order, which, of course, this budget makes a lot more difficult. I mean, he's not wrong. Donovan's not wrong, Perhaps you can make the optimistic argument that this is just a lame duck White House trying to pretend to be relevant and having a little fun at House Republicans' expense. Heaven knows I'd like to believe that. But I want you to picture a scenario in which the House Freedom Caucus, unable to see, much, they did compromise on Paul Ryan for Speaker, after all, beyond the ends of their noses on tactics and strategy, and utterly incapable of grasping how politics and public relations figure into either, makes it impossible for Speaker Ryan to get back to regular order in the budget appropriations process through their rigid unwillingness to recognize that they don't have the numbers to avoid having to compromise to some degree, which would in turn bulldoze Ryan in precisely the same direction that the House Freedom Caucus did his predecessor, John Boehner, In other words, toward Obama and the Democrats in order to, yes, get things done. Because, and I know what you're going to say, oh, but why can't you shut down the government? That doesn't work. We played that card. It doesn't work. I mean, what do you shut down the government, and then Obama just says, well, why should Obama care? Sure, shut down the government. Longer the better. You'll destroy yourselves politically in the process. He's absolutely right. At some point, you've got to get things done. The process has to work. And as we saw a couple of months ago, that strategy is not a pretty sight. That's how we wound up with the omnibus, ladies and gentlemen. That and Democrat obstructionism. I mean, you got obstructionism from two directions. You know, there's a reason why Paul Ryan really didn't want to be Speaker. He really didn't want the job, but he was talked. He said, okay, I'll do it. He knew what he was getting himself into, but it's still... Again, that is the most, arguably, thankless job in Washington. And an omnibus result is precisely what Sean Donovan's comments are intended to encourage. Stir up the pot that Tea Partiers can't resist, fan the flames of the GOP civil war, watch Paul Ryan roast in them, and come next fall, the omnibus beast lurches toward D.C. to be born yet again. For which the House Freedom Caucus will vilify Ryan even though it was their intransigence that helped make it inevitable. Yeah, the Democrats are going to get into this game later this year, so the blood will not, figuratively speaking, will not be just on the House Freedom Caucus's hands. The Democrats will have a big hand in it too. Now, Tea Partiers can do their Captain Picard, the line must be drawn here, this far, no further thing. Their we can't wait Obama imitation, all they want. But that plainly and simply is not how politics works. Unless you have the numbers to force your will on your opponents, you have to compromise to get anything of what you want. Now, you know what I want, ladies and gentlemen? I want every last quark and glue-on of the federal government that resides outside the boundaries of the original intent of the United States Constitution abolished and dismantled, and the federal budget shrunk by 3/4, down to the approximately 5% of gross domestic product that the late Tim Loki Curlin once estimated. Hell, I like that yesterday, please. And if I had that kind of power, I wouldn't have been sitting in my recliner shooting off resumes into the phantom zone and watching my life savings slowly ebb away for the past 2.5 years. Paul Ryan doesn't have that kind of power either, which ought to tell you how cloutless the House Freedom Caucus really is, no matter how much they don't want to admit it. What I'm saying is, isn't 3/4 or 2/3 or even half a loaf on regular order better than demanding the whole loaf, handing the initiative and power to Barack Obama, and winding up on an omnibus third or quarter or none? And if you believe that he's a lame duck, isn't it better to close ranks and keep him that way? Feel free to have your outraged, fantasy-driven premise questioning, well, I guess in the chat room. Peace out. Okay, next story. And it's gonna fit quite nicely, as a matter of fact. Well, that's because most of the bulk of the, even though the top 4 stories in the next hour on Constitution Radio, there's only 4 of them. There are a lot of links under just about every one of them. So, but that's okay. Again, let's get back to Pope Francis for a minute, folks. Wait a minute. Oh, shoot, that was a mistake. That didn't sound good on the air either, I'm sure. Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to work my way around that. Getting back to Pope Francis for a minute, he's effectively, as of this right now, like I said earlier, right now he's on the U.S.-Mexico frontier, and he's essentially made himself an illegal alien. And now, well, I mean, you can see what I'm getting at, right? I wonder, though, is his unholiness going to wade across the Rio Grande, or can the Pope Mobile make it across without either foundering or running over any illegals? Or will that not put a well and truly vile twist on the Catholic baptism ritual if he trips and completely falls on the muddy drink? And by the way, wouldn't you like to see that? Wouldn't you love to see that happen, man? Oh, I can't say that on the air. Besides, the Border Patrol, hasn't the Border Patrol been disarmed? I don't even think they're on the border anymore. I don't know what they're patrolling, but it isn't the border. Here's the quote from Newsmax. Pope Francis is set to arrive in Mexico Friday, so he arrived there. You see, he's on the border right now, for a 6-day visit that will conclude with the pontiff taking a stand on the border to show solidarity with the migrants trying to cross it. An act that could be seen as controversial in the height of a vigorous political season where immigration has become a hot-button issue, the Wall Street Journal reports. The Pope, yeah, I know. Well, Donald Trump's wig just started spinning. Well, falsely, but the Pope is planning to hold a cross-border mass in Ciudad Juarez on February 17th, where on the Mexican side, some 200,000 people are expected to attend, as well as 50,000 in Texas, just across the Rio Grande. Is he going to be standing right in the middle of the river, doing baptisms at the same time? I don't know. And by the way, in case you were waiting for the punchline, yes, after which he'll escort all 200,000 on the Mexican side across the border. Except it's probably more than just a punchline. The only reason why it might not happen is that the White House has not made a big to-do about Obama being there to give it his blessing. Now, I gave you that punchline in order to give you this one. This is it's not a direct quote from Francis, but it's a direct quote from one of his spokesmen, Vatican spokesman. This is one community despite the fence. Don't mince words, Federico Lombardi. What do you really think? That's what he told reporters on Tuesday. I think it will be moving to see this single... Oh, well, let's see. He's Italian, right? I think it will be moving to see this singular community, even though it is located on two sides of the border. Close quote. Wow. Excuse me. Wow. That's better. Flouting U.S. national sovereignty, flouting the rule of law, and flouting the separation of church and state, all in a mere 2 sentences. To say nothing of needling Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders to tack on the approval of this message. By the way, on Bernie Sanders' ads, does he sound like Grandpa Simpson? I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. Seriously, expect to see this papal stunt show up in Democrat ads in the very near future, targeted at Hispanic Latino voters. It's a veritable in-kind Vatican contribution. Come on. I can get rid of that. Hey, I can get rid of that. And finally, from the Russian front, And this is late in the week stuff, yesterday and this morning. Yesterday, here was the headline: Russia threatens new world war over Syria. In effect, now this was Russian Foreign Minister Sergei. I can always forget this guy's name for lately, for some reason. But it's the Russian Foreign Minister. We'll get to it here in the course of the story. But he in effect, he threatened. He said that this was going to lead to world war if in essence the United States didn't just back off and completely withdraw from the region, which we mostly have anyway. But this was actually prefaced by an announcement earlier yesterday that was so delusional that I couldn't put a context to it until this other metaphorical shoe dropped. Calling themselves the International Syrian Support Group, the Russian Foreign Minister and, of course, John Kerry took it upon themselves to pretend to declare a ceasefire on behalf of the actual warring factions in the Syrian civil war that are actually fighting and have no obligation to or intention of ceasing anything. Well, one side of it anyway. The Russians are doing the Syrians fighting for them, but do you think they're going to stop fighting? I don't think so. Let's see. Here is the quote from the London Daily Telegraph. U.S. Commissar of State John Kerry said on Friday that an international meeting on the Syria crisis had agreed to implement a cessation of hostilities in Syria and to immediately expand delivery of humanitarian aid. Now, does this mean that the Russians are going to stop bombing ISIS or provoking a war with Turkey and therefore NATO and therefore the United States? Since Russia is doing pretty much all of Bashir Assad's fighting for him, that would take care of one side, mostly. But who's going to ensure ISIS's compliance? And what will stop Russian hostilities from resuming once it becomes instantly clear that the jihadist state won't? Their word? Kerry, speaking after marathon talks that included Russia, more than a dozen other countries, said that all nations involved in the talks agreed that Syria peace negotiations should resume in Geneva as soon as possible. But none have the actual clout to compel anybody to come to that table. So their respective agenda will still be the top priorities, will still be pursued, and since those agendas are in direct conflict with each other, the war will quickly resume and continue until one side or the other gains the upper hand, wins, and imposes a peace settlement on the other, which is how geopolitics actually works, always has, and always will. I mean, the only way this would work is if the Russians really wanted, hey, all the Russians have to do is withdraw from Syria. That would be putting their money where their mouths are. Their money where their borscht is, I guess you'd say. Now, later yesterday, the Russians made it abundantly clear who will be the rider in that equation and who will be the horse. This is another quote from the London Daily Telegraph. Russia warned on Thursday that a new world war could start in Syria as Persian Gulf countries are saying they will send ground troops into the region. Well, yeah, but they'd be deployed there to fight ISIS, correct? So they'd be fighting on the same side as ourselves and the Russians, right? And ISIS is the common enemy that created the Syrian civil war to begin with, yeah? How would that lead to a new world war? Parenthetically, get a load of this latest John Kerry facepalm moment. Both Russia and the United States called for a ceasefire in the country's civil war, with Russia suggesting March 1st. The United States said that would allow 2 more weeks for Russia to continue bombing so-called moderate rebel forces, which the United States is backing. Yeah, hey, that'd be a great recruitment pitch. To remember the Obama regime's ostensible program to train moderate Syrian rebels? This is what they got trained for, huh? To be thrown under the bus. Well, the Russians will only be bombing you for another 2 weeks. You can hold out that long, can't you? Good. I gotta go here again.
That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. Vector Sigma. I want none of your It never works.
You do know that moderate Syrian rebels don't exist outside of the Kurds, right? Whom we were not aiding even before the Russians intervened in Syria last summer. Even though they're the only serious local forces in the region, whom we supposedly want to do our ground fighting for us. But by the way, the Iraqi government is now sending Iraqi Shiite militias to fight on the side of Bashar al-Assad, the Russians, and the Iranians in defending the Assad regime in Syria. Yeah, that's the same Iraq that we at one time had liberated and pacified. God. But after marathon negotiating sessions designed to get the Russians to stop attacking our erstwhile allies, what we agreed to is to let the Russians carpet bomb them for an extra fortnight. I bet the Kurds sure are grateful that we've got their backs to the hilt. Huh. Saudi Arabia, leading a group of other Arab states, offered its own plan to have Arab troops on the ground because Barack Obama forfeited all of our influence, creating the free-for-all that Dmitry Medvedev described yesterday, which includes Saudi Arabia's ongoing confrontation with Iran, don't forget. That worried Russia, with Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev telling Germany's Handelsblatt newspaper, the Americans and our Arab partners must think well. Do they want a permanent war? Us? What have we done other than give them an extra 2 weeks to blow up more Kurds? Or ISIS, which I thought was supposed to be a good thing. It's like Sergei Lavrov. Yeah, there's the Russian foreign minister's name. Sergei Lavrov hasn't listened to a single thing John Kerry has said in these marathon negotiations, which puts him in the company of 7 billion or so other people, of course. I categorize the above as a veiled threat. The next quote confirms it, in my humble opinion. Quote, such as war would be impossible, or such a war would be impossible to win quickly, Medvedev said, especially in the Arab world where everybody is fighting against everybody. Yeah, he just described how the Russians can win it quickly. Divide and conquer. They're already divided. All they have to do is conquer them. All sides should be compelled to join negotiations instead, he said. So, there you go. Next hour, Constitution Radio, KMET 1490, AM.com.
Constitution is America's owner's manual. Douglas V. Gibbs is America's Constitution Authority, broadcasting live on KMET, AM 1490, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
They're the place to go in the Gibbs pocket of Southern California. The web address, allstarci.com. The phone number to speak to a live patriot, 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll. So there's a complimentary on-air promo for one of our biggest and loyalist sponsors. But we'll be going through the final four of stories of this week's All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week. The first one being what I entitled The Implosion of La Clinta Nostra. That's my whimsical reference to the Clinton crime family. La Cosa Nostra, La Clinta Nostra. Came up with it years ago. And this centers around the prelude to the Democrat side of the New Hampshire primary, which was held on Tuesday, as well as its aftermath. Now, one of the big things going in, another of the problems that Hillary Clinton had going in was that she just was unable to avoid stepping on one rhetorical rake after another, having to do with her Wall Street ties, her immense wealth that she's gotten from speaking fees, including $675,000 from Goldman Sachs. Ladies and gentlemen, did you have a comment, Alex?
No, she's. There are words to use for Hillary, none of which I can use on AM radio. But she's a shrieking harridan who is nothing but greed and viciousness. The fact that there are people who support her scares me to death.
Well, you know, you should. Let's just put it this way: my Hillary Clinton update theme on Hard Starboard Radio, we could not play that on the air here. So let's just say it has something to do with Eric Cartman from South Park, and leave it at that. But she cannot see. I say it often, and I'll continue to say it because I'm going to have an entire campaign in which to say it. That Hillary Clinton is the worst politician in American history. She is the anti-Bill. As great a political tactician, retail politician as Bill Clinton was, that is how bad Hillary Clinton is at politics. And
well, that's perfect. You got the worst politician and the worst president working together.
Well, and he was the worst president. Well, I don't know.
No, I mean Barack Obama's the worst.
Well, I'm talking in terms of skill at politics. I mean, you know, Bill Clinton could sell the Pope a double bed. He could sell
ice recipes. Man.
Ice recipes to an Eskimo. So I mean, that's what I'm talking about. But Hillary Clinton, she like for example, at I think it was one of the Democrat debates before the New Hampshire primary this past Tuesday. She actually here's one of her quotes. She said, $150,000 isn't very much money. She actually said that.
Well, it's not if you're rolling in dough.
I mean, I figured out this week that $150,000 would hold me and my family for 10 years.
Yeah, but she's like Scrooge McDuck. She's got a vault somewhere where she rolls around in the money.
That's not a real good mental picture, actually. I prefer not to focus too much on the image of Hillary Clinton rolling around in anything. But now here's
Hello.
I didn't know you weren't feeling well, Sean. I hope you feel better. Here's some Dramamine.
After that, thinking about Hillary Clinton rolling around, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For example, she said regarding the Goldman. Well, like last week, we talked about on last week that she asked. I think it was Jake Tapper that asked her. Jake Tapper of CNN asked her, "Why did you need to take $675,000 in speaking fees from Goldman Sachs?"
Because that's what they offered.
Well, she went into her "I'm a poor little grandma" routine. Well, I don't know. That's what they offered me. Oh, good grief.
But you get a good understanding of the disconnect that the liberal has between his ideals and his reality. The ideals that the liberal thinks he believes in are all the opposite of what Hillary Clinton is. She's greedy, she's materialistic, she's dishonest, all these different virtues that they try to heap on their candidates. Hillary is the exact opposite.
Well, it's psychological projection, and in Hillary Clinton's case, it's so obvious, and she doesn't have the political skill. She doesn't have the skill at prevarication, lying, for those of you in Rio Linda, California, to be able to cover it up, to be able to persuade her listeners that she isn't that way. She just doesn't have any ability to do it. She can't think on her feet. I mean, here's a quote from rawstory.com along the same lines. She said, "Yes, here's another thing I want to say. Let everybody who's ever given a speech to any private group under any circumstances release the transcripts." See, Hillary Clinton had transcripts of her speeches made, just like Nixon had the Oval Office tapes. I guess because she thought they were going to end up in the Library of Congress or the National Archives someday. She said, "We'll all release them at the same time. I don't mind being the subject in Republican debates, the subject in the Democrat primary. That kind of goes with the territory, but I've been around long enough." In other words, she does mind releasing these speech transcripts. "But at some point, these rules need to apply to everybody," she continued. "And there are a bunch of folks, including, my opponent, who's given speeches to groups, and people on the other side who've given speeches to groups. If this is now going to be a new standard, then it should apply to everybody, and then I'll be happy to look into it further." In other words, the everybody does it defense.
Well, it's a question, though, of did those people who made those speeches, number one, get enormous remuneration, and number two, was there some decision that they, as Secretary of State, for instance, were in a position to make that would benefit a country or a company? Did she suddenly see it their way? I think that's what the FBI is looking into right now.
Oh yeah, they've opened a separate but related investigation into the Clinton Foundation and its connection to the contents of some of these emails. So that the dragnet is widening, and it's really just a question of whether the Obama administration wants to throw her under the bus or not.
Well, the latest on that scandal, as far as I'm concerned, is that Uma Abedin was given special employee status as a chief of staff for Hillary in the State Department. She also worked for Hillary in the Clinton Foundation simultaneously, which is the group that was receiving the money, and it was some kind of consulting firm.
Consulting is a rhetorical umbrella that covers a great many sins.
Which kind of, to me, makes me nervous, considering that 3 of her family members are connected or were connected with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, there you go. And, of course, her campaign is imploding. She lost the New Hampshire primary by 22 percentage points to Bernie Sanders. But Sanders and Mrs. Clinton came out of New Hampshire with the same number of delegates. And that
that's what I'm saying. This is getting to be obvious chicanery in a very illegal sense.
Oh, we're headed for a Days of Rage Democrat convention in Philadelphia later this summer if this continues as it is, because the Democrat base does not like Hillary Clinton, cannot stand Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton lost women in New Hampshire by 11 points to Bernie Sanders. I mean, she lost on for voters for whom honesty and trustworthiness were the top issue. She lost 91 to 5%. So,
well, Madeleine Albright has shown her senility with her quote on "There's a special place in hell for women that don't vote for Hillary."
Well, she apologized for that yesterday, so she walked it back. But this is where we're headed. Where Bernie Sanders may well win a lot more delegates than Hillary Clinton, but the super delegates, 394 super delegates in the Democrat Party, may push her over the top anyway. And if that happens, Armageddon, folks. After the top of the hour, I'm so used to saying that. After this commercial break, we're going to see if we can get Mr. Gibbs on the program and plow ahead with the rest of the All-Star Coalition Big Stories of the Week, as well as the Book of the Week segment with Alex Ferguson. So we'll be back after these commercial words on Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Our records indicate you've been lied to. Welcome to the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Everybody, I'm here. I made it. All right, Jasmine, thanks for figuring out what was going on and taking over, because I have a feeling that's what happened.
Yeah, we got We got through the first story on the implosion of La Clinton Nostra, so we're good.
Nice. All right, well, everybody, welcome to KMET 1490 AM. I am Douglas V. Gibbs here. I'm at the gun show in Ontario. The reason why I wasn't there to introduce the program at the top of the hour is 5 minutes before I was set to go on the air. A couple I had to go outside, go find them, bring them in. It just didn't work out that I could be here, but luckily I'm blessed with Alex and Jasmine to carry the torch when I'm not around. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking care of it. So, Alex, you with us?
Oh, I'm all set to go on the book of the week and the poem too.
And a poem too. Oh boy, that's going to be fun. And Jasmine, so we talked about the Clinton. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the implosion of La Clinton Nostra. We talked about how Hillary Clinton, whose biggest weakness with the Democrat electorate is her immense wealth and corruption and ties to Wall Street, couldn't stop talking about her Goldman Sachs fees and other assorted things going wrong, like up to 30 homebrew accounts on her illicit email server, and she even went after Michigan Governor Rick Snyder over the Flint, Michigan water crisis. She accused him of deliberately causing the crisis in order to profit from it. So I think she's getting desperate.
Interesting. All right. Well, before we go to the book of the week and all that, what do we have next on the Barbie?
The next on the Barbie is segues from the Hillary Clinton story. I've entitled it Sandershevism. You know, Bolshevism, Bernie Sanders, Sandershevism. I think that's going to catch on. It's more.
Well, now here's something that's fascinating, and you let me know if you think this is the case. And Alex, please chime in on this also. Folks keep telling me, well, everything's been such a problem when it comes to this president that the two groups have just gone extreme on us. They want the extreme socialist Sanders or the
I think
you just cut out, Doug.
We're starting to lose the. Yeah, you're starting to cut out there.
Oh, really? Well, I'm gonna turn off the video. That might be why.
It's possible.
Okay. Yeah. Well, earlier it kicked the video off a couple times. I was wondering if that was the reason.
Yeah, you sound fine now. Yeah, you sound fine now.
Yeah, so yeah, video. Well, you know, I'm old computer. But anyway, so we're out here at the gun show in Ontario. But here's my question once again to you: the prevailing opinion last night at the Myriad Temecula Republican Assembly meeting and here at the gun show has been, after having all this time with Obama, the extremes have taken over. The extreme socialists for Sanders, and the extreme we got it. America great again through Trump. So the or political class per se, since they're part of the blame, is the attitude, are just they don't want anything to do with them. They want those other extremes, the Trump and the Sanders. What do you think of that?
Well, there's two caveats to that. One is that a lot of avowed socialists don't think that Sanders is socialist enough. So there's that to consider. Even though Bernie Sanders was originally, back in 1980, he was a delegate for the nominee of the Socialist Workers' Party, which among its platform items included the elimination of the Pentagon and the CIA. And there is if you go to Bernie Sanders' campaign website, there is a slogan that says, "You ready for a revolution?" So I think that's more than just a play on words. And then it also presupposes that Donald Trump is on the extreme right, which, as you know, I don't believe for a second. But he is.
I'm not saying he's extreme right, but he is an extreme solution in the sense that he is someone that people believe would, just slam it into place and forcibly make sure we stop the skid kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and there definitely is that sentiment in a lot of the Republican base. I've said for the last 2 years that I think a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives, don't so much want another Ronald Reagan as they want their own version of Obama. Now, I thought that they meant Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, first-term minority senators who were young, intelligent, and so forth. But it turns out that they mean a 69-year-old billionaire slumlord.
Well, someone who's willing to go around Congress to make things happen, which is what I think we might get with someone like him. Now, that said, last night's a straw poll for the very conservative near the Temecula Republican Assembly, whom I assumed Cruz would win the straw poll. Trump didn't only win, he won by just leaps and bounds, extreme numbers. Alex, what do you think of the fact that conservatives, people who would normally be a Cruz type of group of people, are going for Trump?
Well, I've been studying this Democratic Party for a lot of years now, and it's a repository for the failed Marxists who bail out of the Henry Wallace progressive campaign and such as that. It's always been a hiding place for them. But recently, apparently, the Marxists, who are much more numerous than people would imagine, and growing daily through indoctrination in the colleges primarily, the Marxists have taken over the Democratic Party. And that's why we've got a guy like Obama who is deliberately losing wars and releasing our top priority enemies of the state, the commanders of ISIS, etc. This guy is absolutely a Looney Tune. There's no way of, the media try to dress him up as some kind of normal. There's nothing normal about this guy at all. He is the enemy. But it's a question of the public in general realizing that and reacting. And their reaction is we end up with a guy like Trump who just has no business being where he is.
Well, I was going down the 1980 Socialist Workers' Party platform that Bernie Sanders was a delegate in, and one item after the other, I kept reaching the same conclusion. Well, Barack Obama's already done that. There's this one. Oh, Barack Obama's already done that. And so, I mean, if Sanders were to reach the White House, and by the way, general election polls, hypothetical matchups show that Bernie Sanders would defeat Donald Trump by a wide margin. So we may end up with President Sanders. He might get to the White House and find that he doesn't have a whole lot left to do.
Well, we have experienced a communist takeover, in my opinion. That sounds pretty extreme, but I believe that's what it is. And like I say, the population, the voting public, is going nuts. And the decisions that they make under those kinds under that kind of lunacy, those decisions are not going to be good ones.
Well, looking at the clock here, we got about 7 minutes or so before the next.
Yeah. Well, before you bring on Alex's what he wants to do, though, real quick. So what we're looking at is, if you got questions, ask me. What we got here, though, is we have a society of youngsters that have been trained all their life to want socialism, and then a president for 8 years that has prepared the base for socialism. So, of course, Bernie Sanders is the popular one, not only because now they believe that we're a socialist country and so on and so forth, but also because, well, at least he's honest about a socialism. We're going to get socialism is the attitude of the Democrat voters, and we want socialism. Let's take the guy who's honest about it. I think that's part of the reason for his meteoric rise.
Well, and that's true. The YouGov poll this week of millennials showed that 43% of voters aged 18 to 29 favor socialism over capitalism. Only 32% favor capitalism. So, almost half, and that's the future of the country.
For that generation. Yeah.
That's right.
And that's the reason why it's so important to educate these people. That's why what I do with Constitution classes and the Constitution Association ConstitutionAssociation.com, DouglasVGibbs.com if you want to learn more. Okay, Alex, you've got till 20 till the break. Poem and book review.
Well, the book review, of course, is the same one because, like I say, it's 750 pages of content. It's called The Black Book of Communism, and it's a book that is so important that everyone should read it. It's what the Marxist theoreticians discovered when they opened the Soviet archives. They found out that the lunatics like me and you were right, and that the subversion has been going on, the murder, the torture, etc. We've been over it and over it. But how bad is it? Well, we talk about how, sure, the Soviets had death camps, but they didn't gas people in mass. Actually, they did. They gassed people in battle, their own citizens, and they gassed people in the death camps. They were gassing people before Hitler was even in power. I got a quote here that I think is applicable to today. It says, "Peasants are killing themselves in mass because they can neither pay their taxes nor rebel, since all their arms have been confiscated." The first thing, and you hear it time and again, but this is documentation. The first thing that the Marxists did, the Bolsheviks did, was grab all the guns. At that point, they just started murdering people, and they kept on murdering people to the point where they couldn't find enough holes to stick them in. Now you talk about propaganda and the manipulation of the facts. Think of Herbert Hoover. This is a guy who has been maligned in this country. You talk about the Hoover bills, the shanty towns that the out of work lived in. They call them Hoovervilles. They they heaped all the sins on Hoover. Hoover was a guy who in 1936 went to Russia and brought grain. He fed the people that were starving in Russia because Stalin was shipping their food to Europe in exchange for machine tools and the things that he needed to make himself a world power. Herbert Hoover worked tirelessly to feed those people. The people that he worked for, the Russians, the people that he worked with in the effort to save all those lives, when he left, Stalin had them all arrested and deported to gulags. He was going to shoot them first, and then there was so much protest that he deported them to gulags. But this is I got a buddy just today I was talking to who's professor who had been a 30-year pilot for the Air Force and had traveled all over the world. He said the one characterization you get of the Russians is that they're savages. They will murder, they will rape, they will steal. There's something wrong with the Russian people. The fact that they put up with what they put up with is one... this is Herbert Hoover was running the Committee to Aid the Hungry. The church, when they talk about in El Salvador and other Latin American countries that 6 priests were killed or something like that, it says here, according to church records, 1922, 2,691 priests, 1,962 monks, and 3,447 nuns were murdered by the government. When they talk about, it's always pointing the finger at us. They say, oh, the Un-American Activities Committee was informers, they were squealers, they were rats. These societies, starting with the Soviet Union, that were built on informers, built on secret testimony, built on false accusation. And yet we are the ones that are accused of this. They would dehumanize different groups of people. For instance, the Cossacks were a very noble brand of warriors who always defended Russia. They went in there and wiped them out, called them every kind of name, took their guns away, and killed them. then later on, they didn't have any Cossacks to attack that way, so they attacked the kulaks. The kulak, all it means to be a kulak is that you're a prosperous peasant. They always talk about how the socialist looks out for the little guy. These are the little guys. These are the guys that have no employees. They got a couple of horses. They plow their field and make their living, and they're attacked and murdered. Their family is murdered and all the usual, simply because of who they are. Every other country in the world, you get arrested and executed for what you did. In these totalitarian countries, including ISIS and whatever, it's who you are. And one of the most scary things I can tell you from reading this book as diligently as I have is that the things that the Islamic fascists have been doing that horrify us so much are the very exact same things that the Soviets did when they had absolute control over their country. It's a natural marriage. You don't think so, but I'm writing a paper on it now, of the marriage between the Islamists and the communists.
All
the
this
hardcore
has
red
happened
communists and the Islamists.
Yeah, well, Marxism also has infiltrated Islam. There are all kinds of articles and reports about how Marxism has infiltrated Islam. Not that Islam could, and one wondered Islam couldn't have gotten any worse. Well, it did, because now the Marxists have infiltrated and have made it for something worse, as bad as it was. And with that, Alex, sorry to cut you off there, but we got to go to break. And then after the break, we got more to talk about right here on KMET, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And yes, that's right, I am joining you live from the gun show out in Ontario. So if you have not been out to the gun show yet, come on out, pay me a visit, meet me, get an autographed copy of my book. We'll see you right after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll.
Each and every Saturday morning, Conservative Voice Radio is on the air at 8 a.m. right here on KMET 1490 AM. The broadcast is hosted by Constitution Radio's Douglas V. Gibbs and a roundtable of Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party members Glenn, Jan, and Diane. We want you to be informed and active and a regular listener to our radio program that is sponsored by Antonia's Pizza in Cherry Valley Realty, and the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Tired of the lies? Come here for the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio, Douglas V. Gibbs, right here on KMT 1490 AM. Great to have you. The first segment was carried by Jasmius and Alex. I was here for the second segment. Now it's time for the third segment. And we have plenty to talk about. We're not going to have a Constitution Quest question of the week this week with the gun show and all that. I really didn't prepare for it. But I do want to say this. Constitution Quest game, they've been fantastic supporters of this program and all that we do, all of our endeavors. And their games, as a matter of fact, are on sale right here at the Ontario Gun Show. I've got them for $40 online. They're $50 at the Reagan Library, and at the Nixon Library, they're $60. So if you want to get the game for $40, come on down to the Ontario Gun Show and grab a game, and for that matter, purchase my book. I'll autograph it for you. All right, what's next on the list of craziness that we have to talk about there, Jeff?
The interesting times in which we are condemned to live. That would be story number 2, New Hampshire and the would-be Trumpidency. The New Hampshire primary is on Tuesday. Of course, like I said, Bernie Sanders won the Democrat side 60% to 38% over Hillary Clinton. We all know why. We spent the whole first segment talking about it. But on the Republican side, Trump got his first win. 35% of the vote. John Kasich was second with 16%. And then Ted Cruz was third with 11%, and Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio only got 10% each. Now, Rubio fell down quite a bit because of what I described as Christie's power bombing of him at that debate last Saturday. When
Christie's been pretty much kissing Trump's butt, too.
Well, especially after that debate and after the New Hampshire primary, he spoke to reportedly for like 2 hours to Trump that evening, Tuesday evening, into Wednesday morning. So, and it's being said that Chris Christie was the suicide bomber that took out Marco Rubio, and you know, when you are doing well in a race like this, you know, you gotta know that you're going to have a target on your back, and Marco Rubio was not prepared. Chris Christie went after him, most of all for his propensity for using pre-canned soundbite phrases.
Well, but I think that the story in New Hampshire, though, wasn't Trump and Rubio and Cruz as much as it was Kasich. Kasich is for all we can consider, is pretty much out of the race. There's no way. And the guy, comes across very moderate, and I don't think that's what the voters want. Yet he did really well in New Hampshire. Well, he did do 100 town halls or something. He did just a mess of town halls. They were knocking on. It shows what can happen if you have a good ground game. But he's not capable of that ground game in every state. So this may be the only time we'll see he'll have a good showing.
Yeah, did you see at the debate where he was the only candidate? They forgot to announce Kasich at that debate.
That was awesome. Well, first of all, the two non-politicians didn't know what to do because of lack of experience. And then so they re-announced him, got him on stage, and then they said, and this is and Kasich's still waiting there going, hey, what about me? It was hilarious. But he is forgettable, is he not?
Yeah, very much so, which is appropriate given how annoying he is. But the other interesting thing about that was that Trump was supposed to come out, I think they were coming up in order of the podium, and Trump's podium was right in the middle of the stage, naturally, because he's the star. But Trump waited. He didn't come out when he was announced, and then he came out last. That has a very interesting relevance because, of course, Trump was one of the headliners of WrestleMania 23, and everybody knows in pro wrestling that the champion always comes out last. So that's what Trump did.
And also, I had said earlier, the non-politicians got stuck on the side of the stage. In Ben Carson's case, he didn't hear his name. He didn't know to go out there. And in Trump's case, it may have been to console him or stand there with him or whatever, and Trump knew he should have gone out there. But the thing is, here, this is why I say it was a lack of experience. It all comes down to experience. The other politicians couldn't hear their names called either, but they knew the drill, they knew how it worked, and they still went out there on time. So to me, it was an example of what happens with a lack of experience. When you're not sure of what you're doing, you've never done it before, or you've never been involved with something, it can be devastating, and I think that was just a small taste of it. And this is where Ben Carson, as much as I love the man, I think he's a good man, not only is he soft, but he doesn't have political experience. And I think that could be a bad thing. In Trump's case, he's going to try to treat everything like it's his empire, and in his empire, he's the dictator. And that's where I think it's dangerous. All right, Alex, what is your thoughts about what we've been saying about New Hampshire and the debate?
Well, this guy Trump scares me to death. I think he does look at the world as his empire. And I don't think he's going to be, when you talk about your Constitution, he's going to be the last guy to resort to that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Just put it out there for both of you, because this is something that Donald Trump tweeted on Thursday morning. He said, remember, it was the Republican Party with the help of conservatives that made so many promises to their base but didn't keep them. Thoughts?
Sound like, first of all, that he's separating Republicans and conservatives. They are two different things.
No, he's combining them. He's combining them.
No, yeah, but no, listen to what he said. Republican Party with the help of conservatives. Conservatives are something that's outside the Republican Party, but they got their help. That's the way I take it.
He's claiming that the conservatives are partly to blame for this, and it was the conservatives that rebelled.
But that's not what Trump is saying. Trump is blaming the entire Republican Party for the failures of the entire Republican Party.
No, I understand what you're saying, and you're right, but he's also labeling Republican Party and conservatives two different things. So they're both at fault, but they're two different things. Well, conservatives are in the Republican Party. They are Republicans. They're part of the Republican Party. And although conservatives and establishment are two different things, they're both Republicans. And I don't think he sees it that way. I think he sees the Republican establishment, and then anybody who's not a part of the Republican establishment really isn't a Republican in his opinion. And so this is where I'm thinking he's more establishment.
Well, see, because I think Ben Shapiro put it well this week. He said that Donald Trump's version of conservatism boils down to give me power and I'll make great deals. That is a leftist division or a vision of government rather than a conservative one. And that he
sure. And have you read Trump's book, The Art of the Deal?
No.
You don't have to. Watch his presidential campaign. It's the same thing.
He only dislikes the establishment because he doesn't run it. He wants to replace the old party establishment with himself. Now, here's the Shapiro quote. Here's the money quote on that. Trump fans don't care if Trump is conservative because he's a real American, as though Americanism can be boiled down to nationalism while excising constitutionalism. Trump's going full-bore populist now. So, you know, does anybody think that Donald Trump is going to abide by the limitations on the power of the presidency in Article 2 of the United States Constitution, or does a lot of conservatives want him to be their own dictator?
I said he's going to be the Republican version of Obama. He's going to try to work around Congress if Congress is not willing to work with him, because this has got to get done. And what it is it's the ends justify the means. And whenever you're willing to work outside the rule book to achieve your end, I don't care what party you're a member of, that's tyranny.
And let's see that we could now. I want to make sure, or we should have a nice stretch of time to talk about story number 1, which I have entitled "The Empire Strikes Bundy Back." This is it touches a little bit on the Oregon shooting, but I wanted to just bring it to everybody's attention what happened on Wednesday night, because the final 4 members of Bundy's group that was occupying the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and who refused to give up even after Amon Bundy did, after he was arrested, taken into custody, and told everyone, okay, we gave it a try. Let's go home to your families, especially after Robert Lavoie Finicum was killed. Cliven Bundy, the father of Amon and Ryan Bundy, who had not been involved in any of this at all, he flew into Portland, Oregon, on Wednesday night and was immediately taken into federal custody. That seems more than a little suspicious to me. I mean, why would they be needing to take him into custody, except that the charges that were filed against, or a single charge that was filed against Clive Bundy was the same charge filed against his sons, interfering with a federal officer. And to me, that can only...
But all he did is fly in, right? I mean, the only thing he's guilty of is being Ammon's dad, right?
Well, the only thing I can think of that makes any sense, that has any relevance to what's going on, is that they're charging him with interfering with a federal officer from 2 years ago when the Bureau of Land Management was threatening to storm his property and storm his home. They were already stealing his cattle and so forth. So this is like tying off a loose end.
Right. Well, what's the message with that charge? Federal government can do whatever it wants.
I know.
If you don't like, we'll arrest you for it.
Yeah, I mean,
if you read the Black Book of Communism, it says that when you arrest a person, arrest his family as well.
I mean, just to think of the name of that charge, interfering with a federal officer. I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself, it seems to me. And then, of course, now there was also more that came out. In fact, an account from someone who was in the car when Robert Finicum was shot and killed. Shauna Cox did an exclusive interview on the Dennis Michael Lynch program. That I mean, I know you have your opinion about it too, but it seems a little bit hard to reconcile the details of it. As what she was saying basically was that when they were in the vehicle, Robert Finicum's late model Dodge Ram pickup, they were going to a neighboring county to meet with the sheriff, which seems kind of strange to me, because why couldn't they meet with the sheriff in the county they were in, as opposed to going to next door Grant County, Oregon? But he stopped at a stoplight, and the Oregon State Patrol, whom they were already chasing them. So why did he stop at the stoplight? I don't understand why he stopped. But if he did, then they were going to catch up to him. So what happened next is he floored his vehicle and skidded right into a snowbank. And so that is when they got surrounded by the Oregon State Patrol officers, and I'm assuming the FBI was with them. And then they started doing things that were, in my opinion, really stupid. One person opened the window and stuck his hands out, and then Robert Lavoie, and that's when the officers started shooting. And then Robert Finicum got out of the vehicle and started wading through a snowbank, shouting, "Shoot me! Shoot me!" And of course, they obliged. To me, it just seems like a complete.
Then they loaded it, and then they loaded a bunch of more shots into his body while he lay lying in the snow, dying.
To me, it just seemed to be an entirely avoidable situation altogether. To me, it just looks like a Charlie Foxtrot to me on both sides. I mean, obviously, the law enforcement had no need to empty an entire clip into Mr. Finicum. But if they really, as Ms. Cox said, blasted the pickup, how did anybody in the pickup survive? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I think the truth is somewhere in between, but it was still a situation.
There's always three sides to the story: what he said, what she said, and what really happened, and that's probably the case.
Okay.
The thing is, I think that the problem is, this is the government saying, "Hey, abide by what we say, or we'll shoot you." All right, plug yourself.
BlogTalkRadio.com/HSR Network. I host the Hard Starboard Radio Network podcast Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I write at politicalpistachio.com.
Conservativecandidate.org.
And United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America. God bless you. And remember, power is powerless without action. See you next week right on Constitution Radio.
The Constitution is America's owner's manual. Douglas V. Gibbs is America's Constitution Authority, broadcasting live on KMET AM 1490 Saturdays at 1 p.m.
The Century Group newspapers are published and delivered every Friday. The Yucaipa-Calamasa News Mirror, the Banning-Beaumont Record Gazette, the Highland Community News, and the Fontana Herald News are the dominant local news voices in their communities. And Sun Lakes Life serves the retirement community of Sun Lakes in Banning. Subscriptions for 1 year are $24.95, and for those 65 plus, the cost is $19.95. Go to centurygroup.com for details. That's centurygroup.com and subscribe today.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs. News, talk, sports.
From ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. It's winter, but the temperatures more than 1 million people in 19 states are feeling today is more than just uncomfortably cold. It's dangerously so, and ABC News meteorologist Indra Peterson says it's going to be around for at least one more day.
By tomorrow morning, places like New York City and Boston, you could see those wind chills at 20, if not 30 degrees below zero. It is so important to know those dangers of hypothermia. Check on your neighbors,